Почитувани граѓани, почитувани представници.
Dear citizens, dear representatives of the media, good afternoon and welcome. Today, the Prime Minister of the Government of the Republic of North Macedonia, Zoran Zaev, together with the Minister of Labor and Social Policy, Jagoda Šahpaska, the Your Ambassador in our country, Mr. David Geer, and Latifa Shikovska are going to speak about housing projects for the Roma. These projects are part of the IPA 2 pre-accession assistance with the support of the EU. Today, at this event, we are also going to present the expected result of the 4 projects. First, we are going to hear the Prime Minister of the Government of North Macedonia, Mr. Zoran Zaev. The floor is yours.
Благодарам на најавата.
Thank you for the introduction. Distinguished Minister of Labor and Social Policy, Shahpaska, Honorable Ambassador of the European Union to our country, Mr. David Geer, Distinguished Member of the Parliament of Republic of North Macedonia, Mrs. Latifa Shikovska, distinguished representatives of the civil society organizations and the municipalities implementing the projects, distinguished representatives of the media. It is a special honor for me to be part of this promotional event, announcing the start of the implementation of 4 housing projects for Roma. The projects are part of the Instrument for Pre-Accession Assistance, IPA 2, implemented by the government with the support of the delegation of the EU. These are 4 grants in a total value of about 3.2 million euros for a period of 3 years in the municipalities of Prilep, in the settlement Trizla, in Bitola, in the settlement Bajer, in the Roma neighborhoods in the municipalities of Štip and Berovo, and in the municipality of Kičevo. I can proudly say that these projects are realized thanks to the initiative Roma Integration 2020, within which, at the proposal of the Republic of North Macedonia as a member of the initiative, at the Western Balkans Summit in Poznan in 2019, a declaration was adopted of the Western Balkan countries for Roma integration in the EU enlargement process. With this declaration, our country encouraged the leaders of the region to accept the need for joint efforts to intensify efforts for integration of the Roma population as one of the most vulnerable groups in the societies in the region. Thanks to this declaration and the initiative, Integration of Roma 2020, we came to the start of the implementation of projects that we hereby announce today in the area of housing and in terms of achieving conditions for legalization of informal settlements where Roma live. Within this framework, the government, through the support of the Regional Cooperation Council, supports this process, and together with the municipalities, it approached towards mapping of Roma substandard settlements in all municipalities where the Roma population lives. The mapping will provide a detailed picture of the possibilities for legalization, the legal status of the settlements and buildings, communal infrastructure, access to electricity, road infrastructure, along with providing data on the number of dwellings, respectively households, which have not been legalized so far. In this regard, the government submitted to the parliament a draft law amending the law on treatment of illegally constructed buildings. This shall enable the We also have a new law submitted to the parliament, and this shall enable the persons who have failed to legalize their residences in the past to be able to resubmit documentation, while the persons receiving guaranteed minimum assistance will be exempt from the legalization costs. With the realization of the projects that we are promoting today, conditions are created for urbanization of the Roma settlements. For that purpose, 62 million Macedonian dinars have been allocated in the budget for 2021 for supporting the implementation of the annual operational plans of the Roma strategy. In the area of housing, the planned funds for supporting the Roma strategy in the Ministries of Transport and Communications, local self-government, labor and social policy, altogether with the municipalities' available budget, shall enable supporting and initiating future policies and projects. The area are as follows: adequate housing, legalization and creation of basic conditions for urbanizations of Roma settlements, providing typical houses or alternative housing in those municipalities where there are provided conditions, and projects for social housing in accordance with the local population. Also support for infrastructure projects such as local roads, water supply and sewage networks in Roma settlements, in municipalities with financial support of the Ministry of Transport and Communications budget. This year, the government of the Republic of Macedonia will start the process of developing of the new strategy for Roma to be fully harmonized with the European strategic framework. We have had a project in the Kumanovo municipality, in Shuto Rizari. Everything that was done so far was done with donations. We are thankful to the donors. This will be a stimulation for the government and the municipalities and the social responsibilities of the government and the companies to raise the quality of living and the standard of the Roma population. The government this year will start the process of development of new strategy for Roma to be fully harmonized with the European strategic framework. We expect this process to be completed by August 2021 at the latest, with active involvement of the civil sector. The new strategy for Roma in the country, as part of the public policies of the country for equal inclusion of Roma in the society, is one of the priorities of the government in the realization of its commitment for improving the quality of life of all its citizens. Thank you. Thank you, President. Now you're going to hear the Minister of Labor and Social Policy, Jagoda Shahpaska. Minister, the floor is yours.
Благодарам.
Thank you. Distinguished Prime Minister of the government, Mr. Zoran Zaev, Honorable Ambassador Gear, distinguished MP Shikovska, distinguished citizens, the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy, together with the government, continuously cooperates with the European Union in creating policies and undertaking activities with the sole purpose of raising the standard and improving the living conditions of the Roma community on both national and local levels. The projects funded through the IPA 2 Annual Action Program for 2019 EU Inclusion aim to contribute to reducing poverty in the country, as well as to improve the social, educational and economic inclusion of Roma, who belong to the most vulnerable categories of citizens in the country. For the implementation of the 4 projects in the municipalities Prilep, Bitola, Kičevo, Berovo and Štip, a grant in the amount of 3.2 million euro has been provided. These funds will improve and enhance the housing conditions of Roma families living in deep poverty, but will also increase and improve their access to social, educational and health services. The projects include legalization of their homes, improvement of infrastructure and safe living conditions, repair and reconstruction of their homes, employment of young Roma, support for Roma students with after-school tutoring, as well as raising awareness on equal rights and access to health care. With this project, The houses of 700 Roma households in the Prilep settlement Trisla will be legalized. The properties of 5,000 Roma in the Bitola settlement Bair will be legalized. 1,027 houses in Štip and 40 houses in Berovo will be legalized. This project also includes construction of new dwellings, 50 houses in Štip, 30 apartments in Kičevo, and at the same time there will be reconstruction of 50 houses in Prilep and 15 houses in Berovo. In the field of education, the after-school tutoring program will support 200 Roma students, and activities will take place for increasing the employability of 150 Roma through various employment programs. The objective is to enable improvement of the socio-economic inclusion of Roma, improving access to public education and health services, family planning, promotion of labor market access programs for young Roma and Roma women, as well as data collection for creating future policies. The project will involve local authorities as well as public services such as social work centers, the regional offices of the employment agency, local health facilities, and educational institutions. The Ministry of Labor and Social Policy, as part of the new housing law, includes social housing, which will contribute to the systematic solution of the housing problem of the most vulnerable categories of citizens. Distinguished all, the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy shall continue to support the implementation of projects that contribute towards improving the standard and living conditions of all vulnerable categories of citizens, including Roma. We shall continue to work on the implementation of the strategy for Roma and the commitments undertaken by the Poznan Declaration, which, incidentally, was our initiative at the Western Balkan Summits on Roma integration as part of the EU enlargement process. Thank you. Thank you. I hereby invite the Ambassador of the European Union to our country, Mr. David Gear. Ambassador?
Dear Prime Minister, dear Minister Szapaska, dear Honourable Member of Parliament Siekowska, ladies and gentlemen. Well, first of all, let me express my great pleasure and gratitude to the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Labour and Social Policy for the initiative to organise this event today, during which we promote the European Union's assistance for Roma inclusion. And can I only say this is a particularly timely moment when we see the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, both the economic and social impacts, likely to hit the most vulnerable and make the most vulnerable even more marginalised. What gives me great satisfaction is the projects we are presenting today will tangibly improve the life of vulnerable members of the Roma community. So in the next 36 months, they will obtain better housing conditions and access to education, employment, and health facilities. The European Union has recognized that widespread discrimination of Roma persists all over Europe. That is why EU-funded measures to combat that discrimination are being implemented in both EU member states themselves and here. And in particular, the European Commission's enlargement strategy requires all countries with significant Roma communities to prepare national action plans for their inclusion. And I, of course, also endorse the comments regarding the recent Poznan Declaration, which is such an important step in this direction. Our joint goal is to make equal opportunities real for the Roma population. EU funding is available to support activities to make that happen. Of course, EU engagement must be matched by long-term engagement from the authorities at all levels, including through administrative, budget, resources and provision of services. And that's why I particularly welcome this event today and the commitments made by the Prime Minister and the Minister. Concerning the 4 projects that we are presenting today, they are indeed a continuation of the EU's support for Roma integration over the years. As I've said, notably addressing education, training and retraining of unemployed, inclusion of Roma women, and support to the identification of Roma without IDs. These 4 projects complement 2 ongoing ones. They are mainly addressing the housing needs of Roma living in non-urbanized settlements in extremely poor conditions. Taking together the projects we're announcing together today and those which we have already mentioned, the total budget for this reaches 4.5 million, with 6 projects targeting 8 municipalities throughout the country. Ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this event is to send a strong message to all stakeholders. It's important to act now to make a difference in combating discrimination of Roma and in integrating them into mainstream society. I am convinced that these projects will contribute to achieving this goal, which is a goal not only for North Macedonia, but for Europe as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Dear attendees, finally, we will hear from our MP, Latifa Shikovska. You may take the floor. Thank you. Dear Prime Minister Zoran Zaev, dear Minister Jagoda Shahpaska, dear Ambassador of the EU, Mr. Gir, dear civil society organizations, dear media. Today, together with you, we are talking about interventions of improving the living conditions for Roma in the area of Roma housing. Housing presents a primary human right that is guaranteed by the Constitution for every single individual. Housing is a substantial human need that is imposed as one of the more important living needs. It is the main prerequisite for the creation of a feeling of personal space and privacy, but also social need for shared space for the family. Through the resolution of the issue of housing, prerequisites for a number of other livelihood issues is resolved that are directly or indirectly connected to people, such as social, economic, sociological, psychological, and political ones. Dear attendees, data speaks that most of our Roma live in urban areas, 95%, whereby they're more concentrated in poorer regions or in the slum areas. It's a general conclusion that the conditions under which they live are poorer compared to the conditions where the other citizens of the Republic of North Macedonia live. It's oftentimes about long-term settled areas with unclear ownership status beyond urban planning, without any infrastructure and services of the national system for them are not accessible easily. This situation is confirmed by various research. For example, more than 50% of the families are living with one more family together in their community within a space of 2 to 5 square meters. Half of them lack the conditions for personal hygiene. They lack water, running water in their homes, or usable pumps or on public spaces. In either their homes or on public spaces. As an MP in the Parliament of the Republic of North Macedonia, it is my obligation to continue advocating for and initiating solutions that will serve the purposes of the most vulnerable among us. I will support any initiative that is going to go a step forward to create better living conditions for the ones who are living in makeshift areas such as homelessness, then legalization of homes and social housing. I will support good practices of work with both individuals and families that are temporarily accommodated up until they get their independent houses and also documents of identification, education and employment promoted by the Ministry of Labour and Social Policy through the work of civil society organizations, teams, centers for social work, the employment service agency that are providing successful results. Allow me on this occasion once again to thank the implementers of the project, to wish them successful implementation of the projects and interventions. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. MP Shikovska. Dear attendees, I'll ask for your additional attention because we'll hear the presentations on the outcomes of the projects. We will follow this through the Zoom tool. First of all, we will hear from Sebihan Demirovski from the Association of Roma Resource Center, who is going to present the project provision of decent living conditions for Roma households in Prilep. You may take the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Distinguished Prime Minister of the Government of the Republic of North Macedonia, distinguished Minister of Labour and Social Policy, Honourable Ambassador of the EU in the Republic of North Macedonia, distinguished MP, Mayor of Štip, dear present guests, as you have announced already on the behalf of our consortium for the municipality of Prilep, I'm going to share some short information with the public. The project provision of conditions for living in the Roma households in the municipality of Prilep is going to last for 36 months, starting from this month. The donor for this project is the EU, led by organization from Italy, Celem from Milano, Italy, Municipality of Prilep and the Roma Resource Center from Skopje are the partners to this project. The project was designed for improving the housing conditions and living conditions for the most vulnerable Roma families living in the country. Two main pillars as specific objectives are to improve the conditions for housing for at least 700 Roma households that live in deep poverty and poor conditions, and to improve and make better access to social and educational services and health services for these people. Main activities of this project is to update and to adopt urban plans in order to be able to legalize the households of these people. We are talking about 71.4 hectares of ground where they are located. We are targeting 700 families with this project. Renovation and reconstruction of 50 houses of socially vulnerable Roma family living in deep poverty, regeneration of the infrastructure in the Roma settlement, provision of drinking water for the people that do not have it at the moment, development of social services and health protection services for the Roma population in the municipality of Prilep. As a consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, they are going urgent health protection measures are going to be undertaken in the Roma, among the Roma population in the Trisla settlement, provision of educational support for the Roma children, about 150 to 200 children that are not very successful in the school will be supported by this, and structuring of the activities for generation of bigger incomes, inclusion of the female Romas in this process. Expected results from this project is adoption of general urban plan and detailed urban plan with legalized Trisla Roma settlement, legalization of 700 illegally built objects in that are going to be owned by the Roma families in the municipality of Prilep, reconstruction of 50 houses of the Roma families that are living in deep poverty, installed water network at the length of 2,000 meters, and provided access to quality drinking water for the people who live in the three Bagrems and Gorna Debarca, provided access to health services and provision on mobile clinics for the Roma families, provided additional educational support for up to 200 students that are studying in the primary schools in the municipality of Prilep, and 100 Roma included in the programs for employment, out of which 40% are women. Finally, I would like to mention that these projects are very important. The support that we are given as implementators of the project, the support that is given to us by the EU is very important, also by the government of the Republic of North Macedonia, especially for the families that have not legalized their homes and live in very bad conditions. Thank you. Thank you, Sebihan. Mr. Sasho Nikolov, Mayor of the Municipality of Štip, the project for Štip and Berovo for improvement of the conditions of the Roma population. Mayor. Good afternoon, everybody. Greetings to the Prime Minister of the Government of the Republic of North Macedonia, the Minister of Labour and Social Policy, the Chief of the Mission of the EU, Mr. Gir, and the MP, Mrs. Latifa Shikovska. I'm very glad to be part of this project. I'm going to briefly present the project. Partners of the project are the municipalities of Štip and Berovo and the Association of Ecologically Sustainable Development Green Institute Skopje. The donor of the project is the EU through the delegation of EU in Skopje. The general objective of the project is to promote the housing, education and economical possibilities for the Roma that live in deep poverty through improvement of their conditions for housing and provision of social conditions. Specific objectives of the project is improvement of the urban housing, reconstruction and elimination of illegally built objects, and improving the conditions for housing for the Roma population in the municipalities Štip and Berovo, improvement of the social economic conditions for this population. Regarding the activities that we have undertaken so far, we are talking about legalization of the Roma informal settlements regarding the general and the detailed urban plan. We're talking about 15 hectares in Berovo and 55 hectares in Štip. We're talking about the houses, legalization of the houses that are owned by the Roma in both municipalities Štip and Berovo, construction of 50 houses for 50 families in the municipality of Štip, and renovation and reconstruction of 15 houses in the municipality of Berovo, rehabilitation and infrastructure in the Roma settlements in Štip and Berovo, support of the access of the Roma population to health and social services through inclusion of the local population, volunteers from the Roma community, inclusion of health mediators, one for Štip and one for Berovo, and development and implementation of specific programs for provision of support through the employment of the socially vulnerable families in both municipalities through procurement of tools for this process. The expected results are updated and adopted detailed and general urban plans for the Roma informal settlements, 15 hectares for Berovo, 55 hectares for Stip, legalization of the illegally constructed homes of the Roma families, built 50 houses for 50 families in the municipality of Stip, and renovated and reconstructed 15 houses in the municipality of Berovo, establishment of full and functional infrastructure for 50 families in the municipality of Stip, reconstruction of the sewage network in the municipality of Berovo, construction of small streets in the municipality of Berovo, access to quality and drinkable potable water for also improvement of the system for wastewater treatment and waste treatment by the Roma family for the municipality of Berovo, developed 2 programs for support of the employment in the municipalities, one in Stip and one in Berovo, and support for 100 unemployed Roma with focus on young and female Roma. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Now we will get connected with Ms. Petrevska, Center for Civil Initiatives of Prilep, the project of social inclusion of Roma in Kičevo. You may take the floor. There is no sound. Dear Prime Minister of the Republic of North Macedonia, Mr. Zoran Zaev, dear Mr. David Gear, Chief of the EU Mission to the Republic of North Macedonia, dear government representatives and other attendees, it is a great honor and pleasure to welcome you from Prilep, from the Center for Civil Initiative from Prilep, that in collaboration with the Kičevo municipality will be working on the implementation on the project of 3 years housing for Roma in Kičevo. The main goal of this project is for local authorities to undertake activities to improve better living conditions for Roma community. There are 2 objectives of this project, that is social housing for Roma program, then providing at least 30 Roma families with housing facilities as another goal. Within this project, we have 150 Roma families. Kičevo Municipality Administration, Center for Social Work in Kičevo, and civil society organizations will be implementing this project. The activities to be implemented within this project is the development of social housing for Roma community program, which will be implemented through the needs assessment of Roma living in Kičevo, especially in the area of Prilapska, then development of a social program for social housing by sharing experiences from Vienna, Austria, and a selection of families that will be provided with social housing. The second activity is the construction of social apartments that will be first done through the completion of documentation, then construction of such buildings, and then accommodation of Roma families. The expected outcomes within this project is the program developed for social housing, then at least 30 Roma families will be involved in the social housing program, the construction of legal houses in the area of Ivandol that was selected for social housing project, and the families selected will get their homes and be accommodated there. Thank you very much. Thank you. We move on. Now we'll hear from Goce Bogoevski with the project Bayer Common Action of Bitola for Roma Inclusion. You may take the floor, Goce. Dear Prime Minister of the Government of the Republic of North Macedonia, Mr. Zoran Zaev, dear EU Delegation Ambassador to the Republic of North Macedonia, Mr. David Gear, dear Minister of Labour and Social Policy, Ms. Jagoda Shahpaska, dear MP, Ms. Latifa Shikovska, dear Mayor of Štip municipalities, dear media representatives and other attendees, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to be part of this promotional event. I am a representative of the COCV organization coming from Italy, that is the lead partner in the implementation of the project. Bayer, joint action of Bitola in Roma inclusion, that is going to implement the project together with the Bitola municipality and the Foundation for Sustainable Economic Development, Preda Plus, within a period of 36 months. The project goal is to encourage socio-economic inclusion of Roma community living in Bayer, Bitola, and this project has 3 specific objectives divided into community strengthening by increasing capacity and possibilities of target Roma communities to be integrated in social community of Bitola, then urban upgrade, meaning improving living conditions for the target Roma community, and then social rights, increase access to health, socio-educational rights and employment for the entire Roma community in Bitola. So in line with these objectives, project activities are divided into 3 components. Activities envisaged to strengthen the community by establishment of a hub for the community, then establishment of a team for supporting the community, identify the leaders that will get involved in the community, and sports and cultural initiatives. Urban upgrade envisages activities to implement technical assessment, animation and design of urban plans in the community. Then support in the legalization of properties of at least 50 households. Then implementation of renovation interventions for at least 27 homes of Roma community by infrastructural interventions by the infrastructural network, while social rights envisage definition and assessment of public conditions, integration of the workforce, one-stop shop office for service provision, then design and initiation of an integrated campaign to raise the awareness of people living in this Roma community. Hence, the expected outcomes in line with the objective 1, community strengthening, that is to say a hub established in Bayer, and support teams, increase of support of community leaders in the inclusion of social and political life of their community, implementation and support of sports and cultural initiative to promote their culture, and in line with objective 2, elaborated urban plans will be adopted as well as relevant strategies, implementation and legalization of Roma properties in line with urban plan 50 in number, then energy networks implementation, at least 27 infrastructural interventions. In terms of specific objective 3, we are envisaging service provision for the community through the one-stop shop service and integrated awareness raising campaign regarding equal rights and access to public services. Finally, let me thank the government of the Republic of Macedonia and the EU for the possibility to implement this type of a project in Bitola municipality. Thank you very much. Thank you, Goce. These were the 4 projects presented, while in the continuation of our today's event, we will hear from our journalists, colleagues who will pose their questions, and I will hear from Channel 5 TV. You may take the floor with your questions. I'm interested to know, If you're allowing questions only related to the topic or beyond the topic, you may take both types of questions. You may pose both types of questions. First of all, I'd like to pose a question to the Prime Minister Zaev related to the extremely opposed positions of the government and the opposition in terms of the census. Are we expecting to reach at least a greater census by the beginning of April, so that as many citizens as possible get involved in the census and not close their doors to the census people? Thank you for the question. It is rather topical, but we will have to close it successfully because primarily we are one of the rare countries that has not had census for 20 years now. First of all, we are all in favor of the census, and we all take the responsible attitude that this census should be implemented. I'm speaking on behalf of the government, parties in power that have supported the draft law, while the opposition did not support it. Citizens should know that any opening of amendments means endless blockage of the law on census. Number two, suggestions that have come, we have tried to accept most in great faith and accept the fingerprints, and that even children up until the age of 18 will be counted and they do not have fingerprints, and also people who are members of our diaspora have no ways to use this possibility. This is completely voluntary to accept the suggestions of the opposition, and certainly we are considering all the other suggestions given, such as the electronic census. However, the electronic census does not provide answers to the religious affiliations, ethnic affiliations, then data on our citizens belonging to the diaspora, that is to say non-residents that have been away from the country for more than 1 year, such as the total number of family members and other pieces of data. And I also saw the proposal of the president of the state to postpone it for some months. Okay, anything is possible. We know that in September we will have a campaign and October will be an election period for the local elections. Maybe we should consider it for a month and a half and end it in the middle of June. But once again, I'm sending a message that we should be responsible and implement the census because it is in line with all the Eurostat standards and all international census standards. Some of the bases required for this statistical operation are in place in the country, and we do have them. Some of the electronic databases are used to make the comparison with the field checks that we are making. And some of them are lacking, and they will have to be implemented on the ground in line with all the health protocols. And I think that the least we can do for our country in terms of this issue is to be responsible, all of us. It doesn't deny any rights or provide any additional rights. It will not change anything in the country. No drama will happen. We do need this data for the development of our country, for the regional development of our country, for the economic policies. We do need this data to know how large are the regions in terms of employment and employability, to know where we have locations for new development zones and opening of new jobs. And we do need this data mandatorily from every single aspect. And if it's about the frustration of failing to perform the census and somebody else will success, I now announce that this is going to be our joint success. I here mean the party in power, the opposition, the president of parliament, the president of the country. We will all be will take the credit for the success of this effort, and it's an obligation of all of us. And once again, I encourage you, including the greatest opposition party, to take part in this responsible statistical operation, because the consequences of any deviant occurrences that might take place through irresponsible behavior of large political entities can lead to irreparable consequences. I don't accept the claim that during pandemics we cannot have census. We have had successful local elections. We have had successful any elections during pandemics, and I think that we should take a common ground with regard to this. Thank you very much. You may take the floor now.
We are going to go with the reporter from Sitel TV. You may raise your question. You can hear me. I have a question regarding the health area. How far are you with the Chinese company for the vaccines negotiations? And do you have any details about the COVAX mechanism for the distribution and the first shipment of vaccines for our country? Please, if you can remove the mask so that we can hear you. How far are the negotiations with the Chinese company for the vaccines for Macedonia? And do you have any details about the COVAX mechanism and the distribution of the first shipment of the vaccines? We have heard that it's going to happen in March. Do you have any more details regarding this? Thank you, Prime Minister. Yes, I understood the question now. In order not to talk over the Minister of Health, he has already published the details on this. Unfortunately, according to the COVAX mechanism, we are expecting the first shipment of vaccines in March. We have all the details there from the official website of the Ministry of Health in order for all the details to be known on the COVAX mechanism for the vaccines. According to my opinion, we are going to expect the first vaccines from the friendly Serbia with the Pfizer vaccines, about 8,000. We are going to have a written confirmation by Pfizer that we are going to be able to use these vaccines soon. Second, we are expecting a very positive solution by the European delegation. I know that our Commissioner, Varhey, of the candidate country, is doing everything in his power. And I believe that in conditions of not sufficient amounts of vaccines, we know that AstraZeneca's, Moderna's vaccines are going to be available very soon so that we can start with the vaccination process. In the coordination with Pfizer, we are expecting to have the first 5,850 vaccines coming from them. And in March, we are going to continue with further 17,000 and so on and so on. Also, the procedures for obtaining other vaccines for our country are opened as well. I want to confirm once again that together with our strategic partners, we have said that this is not a geopolitical question. It is a constitutional right of each country, of each state to provide as many vaccines as possible, together with our allies in NATO, together with the US of A. We're making efforts to provide vaccines for our people. I'm considering that the procedure is going to be finalized during this week. And I think that by 15th or the 20th of February, we're going to be able to do this, to provide some Chinese vaccines with the most affordable conditions. We certainly have a partner in our country, Alkaloid. If we need to have a partner in order to respect the Macedonian laws, I believe that this is the option that the citizens are going to have very soon. The details on the communication can be disseminated to you by the minister and the deputy minister of health. The legal solutions, the legal roads to this are established. We're trying to do our best to have the best possible results and to have as soon as possible the Chinese vaccines here in the country, apart from the Pfizer and Moderna mechanism within the mechanisms. Prime Minister, here is the end of the press conference. We had a question about the census, but you have already answered to this one. We're hereby ending this press conference. Thank you all for being present here today. Have a nice day.